Welcome to the fourth segment of the 2021 Yorkville Exotic Car Show Virtual Edition. We had a tough time naming the segment because it has a good mix of different cars, but we'll give you a hint. Early on when we first started planning, we nearly called it a classics or a throwback segment. The car you're about to see next might look a little familiar because it has appeared in one of my favorite movies. If you and your wolf pack ever needed to, say, get to Las Vegas for a bachelor party, something like this would be a solid choice, don't you think?
Hi there, I'm Gary Shapiro. I'm the president and founder of AutoVault Canada, and I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to come visit us today and to see my very special 1970 Mercedes-Benz 280 SE 3.5 Cabriolet. It's a very important vehicle to me. It's something I've wanted my entire life, and I was fortunate enough to acquire it in the last year after a couple of year restoration. So we're going to spend a few minutes and we'll give you a little tour of it. So as you can see, the 280 Cabriolet is a beautiful study in classical proportions, very subtle elegance. There's just something very, very special about it. Here's the original 1970 brochure. And you can see here that the original brochure car was the same color. It's called DB180 Silver. So this car new in 1970 was 15,000 Canadian dollars. So to put that in perspective, a brand new Cadillac in 1970 was about $6,500. So this was 2.25 Cadillacs. So very rare. They only made 1,232 of these vehicles for the world. So we calculated that there's about 600 left today. This was a car that Grace Kelly drove when she was married to Prince Rainier in Monaco. This was the creme de la creme. Beautiful leather, wood, trim. Everything in this vehicle was the best quality in the world. This was the pinnacle of automobile engineering at that time. In late '69, Mercedes-Benz developed a new engine. It was known as the engine of tomorrow. That's the engine that powers this car. It's an 8-cylinder. It puts out 230 horsepower. So by today's standards, not a big number. But in late '69, early '70, this was quite the engine. This is a completely redone engine. Every nut, every screw, every bolt, everything in this entire vehicle, from the engine back, has been redone. All the wood, all the leather, everything, glass, chrome, everything's been redone or is brand new, bought from new old stock. That was still available at the Mercedes-Benz Classic Center in Irvine, California. So as you can see from the interior of this automobile, it's a very, very special place to be. It's like a library. It's like a classic club, fine dining. The best woods, leather, trim, everything's chromed. Everything is the best of the best that was available in that time period. It's simple, elegant, tasteful. That's what this car was all about. Even the trunk of this automobile is beautifully detailed. It's fully carpeted. The spare tire is encased in beautiful black leather. Matching set of tools. Everything done at a very, very high standard. All the chrome fittings, lights at the sides of the license plates, beautifully detailed. So again, thank you for taking the time to come visit. I hope you enjoyed the little trip down memory lane for the classic 1970 Mercedes 280 SE 3.5 Cabriolet. They don't build them like this anymore. Thanks for watching. Be safe. Happy motoring. Bye-bye.
Well, they certainly do not make them like that anymore. Gary is the proud owner of AutoVault Canada. If you have a luxury vehicle that needs safekeeping, store it with Gary. He'll donate 10% of proceeds from our car show community to the Melanoma Network of Canada. Up next, we don't have just one car to show you, or even two. We have a collection. We're taking you behind the scenes at a personal car museum. You'll meet the owner in this next clip while Sean takes you through some of the other cars in his collection.
How's it going, guys? We are here with Walter. He is a longtime supporter of the Yorkville Exotic Auto Show. He has kindly let us into his garage museum to show a lot of these spectacular cars he has with us. And to start off, this 1955 Mercedes Gullwing.
This car is one of the world beauty. It's the 300 Gullwing, and is a 1955 original color, restored to originality in every aspect. This car is a concours condition car, and let's say is the queen of our cars. The car is a shift gear car. In the time they were using shift gear, and the engine is completely original. And then after that we have the 190 SL, that is the smaller version of the 300, and as well that car is original color and completely rebuilt. And then we have another car that is stuck in custom in the States, that is the Faster Vega. You have it here on my t-shirt, and will be the only one in Canada. It is a French car built in the 1960s. This car was wanted by de Gaulle. De Gaulle wanted to have a deluxe car built in France, and this car that I am importing into Canada is a car that has all the documentation going on from the time of de Gaulle to today.
How's it going, guys? Sean here with the Morgan, made in 1948. I think Morgans are really cool. They have this sort of big light style. It's built like a race car. The little doors here are tiny. They open to the side. British flags, hood releases right here. Little teeny tiny mirrors on the side and teeny tiny windshield wipers. Look, the wipers are actually connected together by a little stick. I think Morgans are really, really rare. They're really, really cool. You never see these on the road, and it's a really cool car. All right, guys, this is the 1963 Sabra. It's a GT. It's a really cool car. I love this blue color. It's got a nice hood scoop up the front, which I think is awesome. Really old school styling. Like, it really reminds me of like an MG and that sort of like older British type of cars. Really tiny too, like really, really small car. And the best part is about it is if you don't want the hardtop, he's got the convertible too. So same thing, 1964 Sabra convertible. Almost exactly the same look, same interior color. This one's just red this time, but it's definitely a cool car. We are here with the 1965 Jensen CV8. It's a really cool car, apart from this kind of funky headlight design here, which is pretty cool. It's got a hood scoop, which obviously fast cars have hood scoops. The mirror design's pretty cool, so up here it's kind of up on the flank as opposed to right here, so it leads the car to sort of have like a swooping sort of style. Little tiny washer windshield wipers, just like the other cars. And our favorite, the rear window heater. So you want to heat up that rear window? Don't worry, we got you covered. We're going to talk about one of my favorite cars in this garage. This is a 1962 Renault Dauphine. It's red, it's got the old sort of Renault styling, and the coolest part about this car is this is actually the first car Walter ever bought. Ever. First car he ever owned in all of his collection, and he kept it, which I think is awesome. Something I would do.
The Yorkville Exotic Car Show is so proud to support the Melanoma Network of Canada. Melanoma is a common cancer that can be fatal. We choose to support this charity because it is actually incredibly relevant for the car community. Research on UV exposure in vehicles shows that UV rays can be transmitted through car windows, and UV radiation can be transmitted through front windshields and side windows too. Based on a study done on Mercedes-Benz on the arms, UV exposure was about 3 to 4% of ambient radiation when the car windows were shut, and 25 to 31% of ambient radiation when the windows were open. In the open convertible car, the relative personal doses reached 62% of ambient radiation. Don't forget to wear your hats and lather on that sunscreen this summer. For our next clip, please join us in welcoming a face you have already seen on our red carpet. Thank you to Jeff from Envision Inc. for your continued support of the Yorkville Exotic Car Show.
Hello, my name is Jeff Farkas, and I'm sitting inside my 1976 280Z, and I'm heading out to Lake Wilcox to take a few short videos for the Yorkville Exotic Car Show, which takes place annually on Father's Day. And this year they've teamed up with Melanoma Network Canada, so all donations go towards them. Yeah, so here's the inside. My car is original seats, Nardi shift knob, Nardi steering wheel, and for all the Datsun geeks out there, we have a clock that's actually working. I sent it out to California. And we also have an auto power rule bar that was installed, as you can see, sort of. And that's it, and we'll see you out there to see the outside. Bye. Alright everyone, we're at Lake Wilcox, and I'm going to show you the exterior of the car. Like, get up, that is. So, here she is. Wheels and tires, Toyo Triple H 245, 45, 16. The Epson wheels are 70s wheels that are modified in California. The front 16 by 11, the back 16 and 11 and a half. Let's take a look at the engine quickly. We've got triple ITBs from Genvi. And we put a race cam, 3/4 race cam, Schrick, and a bunch of other stuff, standalone computer and so forth. Really cool. That's the engine. Take a look around, take the rhino, I'll show you around.
That was a fantastic submission. That car is a standout, and it's always a pleasure for us to display that on the red carpet on Bloor Street. Cars from automakers like Datsun have played such an important part in automotive history, and this next car is no different. It is a pillar in the JDM scene, and it needs little introduction. Here's a hint. Can you be the first to guess in the comments what it is? Ludacris enjoys it. Mia Toretto has driven it. The latest generation has appeared in The Avengers, and it also made an appearance in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. Thank you, Tommy, for giving us a look at your Acura NSX.
Hi, I'm Tommy, and behind me is my 1991 Acura NSX. The reason why I got my NSX, call me a Honda boy racer, but I've been in the tuner scene for about 2 decades now, and worked on the way my graduation system of Hondas, from modifying my Honda Accord, Honda Civic, skipped the S2000, and got my ultimate goal, my Acura NSX. How I envisioned my NSX build is that I want to build my NSX that was very well balanced, touching in every single aspect of mods and details of my car. Let's start off. I had the whole car resprayed back into factory Sebring silver. I have also added a lot of carbon bits on the actual car itself, starting off with my carbon VIS hood, carbon eyes impact vents, along with my carbon Type R rear spoiler, and as well O2 Plus carbon rear diffuser. Now moving on to wheels and suspension, I have Workmeister's S1Rs, custom spec to ordered, wrapped with Federal tires, and as for suspension wise, I have HST coilovers mated with Stance Parts air cups to give me that lift at any given moment. So with my interior, I wanted a very well-balanced interior. Although it's a 90s car, I wanted a little bit of modern day touches from my steering wheel, shift knob, upgrading to the car audio, and upgrading the actual interior itself. One of my favorite interior mods is my titanium Damascus shift knob. The reason why I love it is just the actual burn itself and the way that it's actually made. It actually doesn't burn in the middle of this heat. With my engine bay, I gave it the same Type R feel, but one thing I'll have to say is that I'm a sucker for rare mods, and one of them being is my ARC intake for my NSX. My fondest memory is actually my most recent memory, driving my NSX to our very first home. So this is my first time attending Yorkville Exotics. Unfortunately, we can't attend there in person, but I hope you enjoyed my NSX virtually.
That was incredible, and I'm not really ready to move on. Let's reminisce a little more about some of the automotive world's best days. I think after one more car, I'll be ready to move on to cars of the modern generation. So let's get Alec Ackerman from Grand Touring on camera now. Alec is great. He has incredible brand knowledge, and we're sure you're going to enjoy this upcoming video. This is not just a walk around, but rather a story on Aston Martin's history and how their vehicles have been shaped and designed, and why.
A warm hello from Grand Touring Automobiles and Aston Martin Uptown Toronto. My name's Alec A. Ackerman, and today I'm going to take you guys through a history of Grand Touring. Not the brand, but the segment, and how Aston Martin plays a pivotal role. Today I want to start talking about David Brown, a wealthy industrious from England and probably one of the most well-known owners of Aston Martin. He popularized our vehicles in the 1950s and 1960s, and what we see here today is one of our most famous models from the time, the DB6. Now, this vehicle came in directly after the DB5 that was made popular in the movies Goldfinger and Thunderball, and this particular example is also painted in our famous silver birch from those movies. But an interesting development had happened by this point in Aston Martin's DB heritage. The Grand Tour. Now, the Grand Tour was a thing that wealthy industriists, or rather wealthy individuals who owned Aston Martins in England, loved to partake in. They would travel across to Europe, through the north, down through Switzerland, into the south of France and Italy with their cars. And at this point, with our classic cars like the DB4 and 5, the cabin space wasn't very large. With the DB6, there was a real movement coming from America, the Ford Mustang. Travel with your friends, go everywhere, do anything. And though the Ford Mustang didn't directly compete with the Aston Martin, it did influence the overall interior shape. So, DB6, the rear seats became larger. Another thing was, early days, the DB4, tremendous car. We actually raced with them and won a number of key races in the pinnacle of motorsport. When the DB5 came around, we added an extra carb. Now that made the car way faster, but it also made it a little unpredictable and difficult to handle. So, in an interesting turn of events, a Canadian, of all people, was brought on board to design this interesting rear ducktail spoiler. It increased downforce and was an early show of aerodynamicism in the industry. Pretty cool. Now, the Grand Tour, DB heritage, brings us forward to what we sell today. This is a DB11. essentially, if you take Sean Connery's car from the famous Furka Pass in Switzerland and you spring forward all the way to 2021, this is what we're left with. It's a beautiful car. That goes without question. But what's amazing is Merrick Reifman, our chief of design, he was given sort of an unfavorable task in designing this car. How do you go up after the DB9? Arguably one of the prettiest cars of all time. Well, in his case, he didn't draw as much inspiration from the DB9. It's quite apparent he drew a lot of his inspiration from our classic cars, the DB5, DB6. You can see it in the aperture of the grille. You can see it in the shape of the hood and also the wide haunches on the rear of the car. DB11 really is a throwback to the past then. A beautiful vehicle and a fantastic way to interpret Aston Martin's bold future. Now, talking a bit more about that bold future, we're in 2021. We live in the future. We have smartphones that connect with our fridges. We have toasters that connect to Bluetooth. And Aston Martin now has the first SUV in its 108-year history, the DBX, our bold future exemplified in the sport utility. Now, talking about sport utilities, talking about our interpretation of how a sport utility vehicle should be, we have the DBX. The DBX is the result of years of engineering, an entirely new manufacturing facility built in St. Athan, Wales, the first manufacturing facility actually in Wales to make cars by hand. And when I mean years in engineering, I mean 4 years just to design the chassis on the car. And that actually is a good point. Chassis sharing in the industry these days is a thing that runs rampant. You'll see 9 vehicles and they're all on the exact same chassis as one modular architecture. The fact that Aston Martin designed a bespoke chassis for this car means that we can do a number of things. Like we can position the wheels where we want them to be, right stretched out to the corner of the car. It also means that we can have a really nice long wheelbase, makes the car nice and smooth. The long wheelbase is actually pretty nifty because it means that the car's wheelbase is longer than a Range Rover full size, but the package itself just a little bit larger than a Porsche Cayenne. Now, this is just one of a number of sort of key breakthrough technologies that are debuted here on the DBX. 3 of them that I want to talk about. The first of those is torque split. Now, everybody knows that good performance cars are rear-wheel drive, oversteer. And cars that aren't fun to drive are front-wheel drive, understeer. So by default in the SUV class, there haven't been a lot of fun cars to drive because of this. Now the SUV Aston Martin is a little different. It has 90% of the power by default to the rear wheels and just 10% to the front. The byproduct of this is it drives more like a sports car than anything else. It can send up to 40% of that power to the front wheels, but by default, it feels more like one of our sports cars. The second thing is a nifty technology that you may or may not have heard of, called 48-volt anti-roll architecture. Essentially what it is an electric drivetrain. An electric drivetrain that doesn't power the car forward, but rather props the car up as you go in and out of corners. So this technology, it's been around a couple of times before, but the unique thing here is it's never been available as a dual chassis system. So there's an electric motor on the rear, an electric motor on the front, and both of them operate at twice the power of anything else that's been previously available. The effect of this is when you go through a corner at 100 miles an hour with DBX, it has the same roll pitch as our sports car, the Vantage. Tremendous in an SUV. Never really something that's existed before, actually, in an SUV. The last thing I want to talk about is air suspension. Air suspension's been around for a long time. Land Rovers have had it since the 90s. But the unique thing about DBX is it's the first vehicle in its class with 3-chamber air ride suspension. So rather a conventional setup that has a low mode, a regular mode, and an off-roading mode, DBX has a total of 5 ride heights. They can be individually selected as you drive the car. So as an example, if you're driving the car regularly, it sits up nice, authoritative driving position. If you find yourself in some snow, you can raise it up through terrain. And if you find yourself in the middle of the wilderness, you can do Terrain Plus, where it has almost as much ground clearance as a Range Rover full size. Then on the flip side of things, if you go into Sport or Sport Plus mode, it'll incrementally drop the car down to the point where it's really, really close to the ground, and again, increases performance. That's pretty nifty. All these things are key functions that make DBX a tremendous vehicle. But would you expect anything less from Aston Martin? I want to thank you guys for coming here today and touring through our dealership, experiencing Aston Martin, and also seeing the history of DB and the Grand Tour. And for all those fathers, have a fantastic Father's Day. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
We've been keeping this final clip in our open class segment under wraps because it is a surprise that we have been waiting to share. This submission is dedicated to one lucky father in the GTA. We hope he's been enjoying his Father's Day so far, but we think his day is just about to get even better. Happy Father's Day, Rashawn. This surprise comes from Lucas and Toby.
Hi, my name is Lucas Pierce. I go to Western University for mechanical engineering, and this is my dad, Roshan Pierce's 2006 Aston Martin DB9. This is our first year participating in the Yorkville Exotic Car Show, and we're excited to show you this. Some of my favorite memories with this car were myself taking it to prom, as well as a trip I had with my dad to his hometown Chatham, where we visited RM Motorcar and saw some of his old friends, and it was a really fun trip. That was about 3-4 hour drive. And another great memory was picking it up for the first time, just seeing the look on his face. He was so happy. And yeah, I mean, the acceleration as well. Every time you get a little bit of a go, it's a memory to be made. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for joining me with the Yorkville Exotic Car Show and seeing our DB9, as well as thanking everyone for donating to our charitable cause, Melanoma Network of Canada. I think it's a great cause, as well as Happy Father's Day, and I'll see you guys next year.
Segment of the Yorkville Exotic Car Show presented by Bloor Yorkville in support of the Melanoma Network of Canada. We've spent a lot of time focused on older cars, but now it's time to move into the future. Tune in to our final segment at 4 p.m. to see cars from Polestar, Porsche, Audi, McLaren, and more.